funny video from 73 when we were children in the children's house. And it was Yom Kippur War. So we are going down to the bomb shelter with, how do you call it, pajama?
Pajama, okay.
Pajama. So it's so cute. We are so little children and we are going down with a smile on our face and like a thought, oh, we are going to be there. No parents, no one will say what to do. So it really depends on the mood and how the society around is support you and what they tell you and etc. This is our teacher is here. Hi, Geshe.
Hi.
Shidile, good evening. So we are just one moment.
Okay.
Okay. Geshe, you are now co-host. So
Okay.
thank you everyone that you came here. It's 6 o'clock in Israel time. So I know it's not so comfortable to everyone, but still we have the recording on the YouTube and the WhatsApp group, so you can see the things from there. Go inside to the recording or the PDF file from the course. Thank you, Geshe.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll start with setting the mind, setting the right kind of motivation as usual. Focusing on the breath first. And then in the space in front of you, visualize a large open lotus that symbolizes renunciation, on top of which lies a sun disk, symbolizing wisdom, and a moon disk on top of that, a moon disk which symbolizes compassion. The three qualities of a fully enlightened being who is seated on the lotus, the sun disk, and the moon disk. Appearing in the form of a ordained monk, who's inseparable from your lama or your lamas. Inspiring you to strive towards attaining the same qualities the Buddha himself has attained. And at the same time, being an object of refuge, a way of teaching us the Dharma. And then without losing the sense that Buddha is right in front of us, so think that you're surrounded by all sentient beings. For whose benefit we're here today. They're seated all around us, appearing as human beings. With the nature of their mind not different from the nature of the mind of a Buddha. And being just like us in wanting to be happy and satisfied. And wanting to be free from unpleasant experiences. And then generate affectionate love, that feeling of closeness and acceptance and deep concern for all sentient beings. And then while focusing in particular on their unwanted experiences and all their obstacles, all the obstructions that prevent them from experiencing lasting peace and happiness. Generate great compassion that sincerely wishes or aspires towards all sentient beings, not only to be free from these different types of dukkha, suffering, but also wishes for us to be able to protect them from all dissatisfactory experiences and their causes. And that wish or that aspiration then grows stronger. It turns into an inner determination, an inner strength that based on our feeling of closeness and concern for all sentient beings is determined to work towards helping sentient beings to overcome all their dissatisfactory experiences and their causes. But since that's only possible once we become a fully enlightened Buddha, so we're most effective after we've become enlightened. So let's aspire towards our own enlightenment, mainly for the benefit of all sentient beings. and that way generate bodhicitta. Which is also the driving force that motivates us to continue to study the 7-point mind training. So based on this visualization and the mind of enlightenment, let's recite the prayers. The prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. Now, before I start with the Lum Room, I would like to add something to the answer I gave last time to some of your questions. One question was by Shmuel about self-deprecating thoughts, about low self-esteem, about self-hatred. So a person who suffers from these types of mind, well, how could they have self-cherishing? And I thought about a different situation. So far I've only mentioned self-deprecating thoughts, self-hating thoughts because of not living up to our own expectations, of not being able to bear certain failures and so forth, of not being satisfied with our appearance and our character, etc. That is one way, one reason for generating these kind of, well, destructive thoughts directed at ourselves. But there's another way. I thought about this the other day. If like a child is raised by an abusive parent, for instance, who keeps telling them you're not worth anything, you're terrible, you're useless, you're a failure, whatever, you're not lovable, whatever they're being told. So the question is, does such a child have self-cherishing or not? Well, first of all, does such a child have the attitude of self-grasping, as it's called, or the misperception of the self? Now, the answer to that is definitely yes. I mean, has that attitude, continues to have that attitude. And how do we know that? Because the fact that if we're told, I don't know, we're physically not attractive, mentally not attractive, and so forth, what we automatically do is, well, besides the fact that we believe someone who, well, anyway, that's a different matter, but believing this other person, believing what they say, and then attaching these characteristics, these attributes, these negative attributes to a self that seems to exist as a totally separate entity from mind and body. Because the other person, what they're telling us, well, they're describing possibly qualities of the body or qualities of the mind. Well, all our qualities to concern one of these two qualities of the body or of the mind. And so what we do with this criticism, for instance, we believe there to be a self that these qualities can be attached to, like a separate entity. Otherwise, it would be like, okay, yes, I've been told this, I've been told that, not good, not this, but there's nothing to attach it to. What would be the entity that now holds on to and believes in those attributes, well, that's the self. That's that separate entity called the self. So we believe in this separate phenomenon, this separate thing, and believe to be a failure, this, that, and the other. So definitely, there's definitely, for an ordinary person, there's definitely that root misperception. And then, of course, there's also self-cherishing. I want to be in this way. I don't want to be like this. I want to be loved. I want to be liked, etc. Now, it's a natural thought that we have, but of course, as it grows stronger and as it can grow stronger, it creates a lot of trouble. So the point is just that there's first a sense that there is this I, and being criticized by someone else. So holding on to this entity that has all these attributes that we believe to have. Maybe we do have some of them, but the point is we believe in these attributes, but there's we believe in this entity that holds these attributes and a separate self. And then, of course, the wish for that self to not be criticized, the wish for that self to be loved, to be appreciated, and so forth. But it's all based, and oftentimes in certain situations, of course, then being abused as a child, possibly also passing it on to others, being raised in such a way, we do the same to others, and so forth. So again, there's definitely an exaggeration of the I and the wish, or a sense that we're more precious than others. So I don't think there's a contradiction, but I wanted to bring in this example. And then also something Leora asked last time. Well, we were disrupted. There were some technical problems, so I couldn't finish. But just to say once again, can we be happy about something happening to another person that the other person would consider to be negative? And I think the answer is yes. However, also for the benefit of that person. So let me take another example, like a serial killer who's killed a lot of people is caught and is finally imprisoned. So in that situation, can I rejoice? Yes, but not to rejoice in the suffering of the serial killer, the fact that they get imprisoned, they lose their freedom and so forth, but instead to rejoice, first of all, that these potential victims, I mean, those who were already harmed by the serial killer, the sense of finally this person is caught and there's some justice. So to rejoice in that, to rejoice in the fact that all the potential future victims are safe now, but also for the sake of that person, for the sake of this being, to connect to them not on the superficial level of these horrific things that they have done, but also on a deeper level, their wish to be happy, their right to be happy. Like everyone has the right to be happy. And so therefore rejoicing in the fact that they no longer have the opportunity to create incredible future suffering for themselves. So, and then you can apply this to anyone else. So to be happy that this person is caught, that this person is being punished, is being locked away because it benefits them. So that's the point I was trying to make. So we can be happy, but we need to be careful to not rejoice in the suffering of that person. All right. B also sent me an email. Sorry, B, I forgot to, I don't remember now. It was a few days ago. So allow for me to, if you want it to be addressed in class, I'll do it next time. If that's okay. Or if you want to ask right away. Was this something?
It's not meant as a question per se, or maybe it's just the last part.
Okay. Well, let me do it next time if that's okay, because I forget now. So I need to probably.
Because it's not directly related to our topic right now in this class.
Okay. All right. Okay. But maybe I'll just do it privately. All right. Which reminds me, before I forget, next week on Monday, could we shift the class? Because it's Christmas here, so it's going to be difficult for me to have class. Could we shift it to another day, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on your schedules? You could let me know, Dalit, later on
I
what
will
works
speak
best.
with you. I will speak with Reed first, and then I will speak with you. But anyway, because it's holiday and it's important, So I will not do the class this day.
Yes, okay, we could reschedule the class.
Will be another day, so I will announce everyone.
Okay, great. Okay, so having said all this, let me now start the Lum Room. Just a sec. Make sure I do it right. Here they are, the Lum Room outlines. Okay, now I've basically finished equalizing and exchanging self with others, equalizing and changing self with others or self and others. Very important part of our practice. Of course, understanding that self-cherishing is the main problem. Self-cherishing is even more harmful than self-grasping, because self-grasping doesn't directly give rise to attachment and so forth, even though self-grasping is, of course, the root. So understanding the disadvantages, understanding the advantages of cherishing others, and then understanding that, contrary to our belief that for my own benefit, I'm most important, for my own happiness, I'm most important, we need to understand that for our own benefit, or for our own happiness, others are equally important. And if others are equally important, and if cherishing myself, if being self-centered is the root of all my problems, it makes perfectly sense to focus on cherishing others, to put others' well-being before myself. So self before others, which doesn't mean I self-sacrifice. It doesn't mean I neglect myself. No, I eat healthy food, I sleep well, I exercise, I do everything to keep healthy mentally and physically, so I'm of greater benefit to others. So this is really the goal of Mahayana practice, which is said to be the most effective way to find true and lasting happiness. And having gone through all these points, then we are motivated to actually do this, to focus on the well-being of others, to have others' interests in mind in all our activities, which then leads to that closeness, which is the next point, really. I've already gone through them, but they're the same for these two methods of generating bodhicitta. So having gone through equalizing, exchange yourself for others, the next point is affectionate love. We always start our classes with generating that kind of feeling of closeness and acceptance, which then gives rise to great compassion, then the altruistic attitude of being determined to work for the benefit of sentient beings, and then, of course, understanding that we can only be most effective or most effectively benefiting others, working for the benefit of others, if we're fully enlightened, which is therefore then lastly the mind of enlightenment. So that is one method, therefore, to generate this kind of attitude, this kind of mind, this kind of bodhicitta. There's another way which we find this day and age, we find it more difficult, but I believe, especially since we find it more difficult, we shouldn't just ignore it. We shouldn't just put it aside, but spend more time also dealing with it and finding out why we have such a hard time with it. And which is, well, the 7 causes, the 6 causes and 1 effect, starting with recognizing all sentient beings have been our mother. Now, with this, we address a topic that is rebirth, reincarnation, very difficult for some of us, not for all of us, but some of us have a hard time with it. But again, to keep an open mind, to generate some kind of curiosity and openness towards the idea, and not to put it aside, totally ignoring it. Because it's extremely important for understanding our mind better. The fact that our mind, our mental continuum cannot be severed. There's always awareness, even though we may not remember, even though at times of deep sleep, we don't remember that we slept, I don't know, for 7-8 hours. And still there was awareness. It was just because our mind was so subtle that with our coarse mind, we don't remember. The same applies to death, that we've lived before this life, and to allow ourselves to generate some kind of interest in the possibility that we've lived before and we're going to live after this life. We'll continue. Our mind will not end. And of course, Buddhism doesn't make sense, doesn't really make, well, it makes sense to a certain degree, but without reincarnation, there are a lot of holes in many of the Buddhist ideas. Liberation, for instance, I mean, to develop liberation in one lifetime is unrealistic. Enlightenment anyway, it all takes time. So some of the ideas no longer make sense. But also, how does the mind work? What is the nature of the mind? What about children who do remember past lives? Now, I've met a lady once who told me on one of our rides to a kibbutz when I taught a course. So when we actually returned from the kibbutz, I remember I talked to her about her niece who very clearly remembered a previous life, and it was incredible, like the stories she told. And actually, she was reborn as her own grandmother, who she had never met, because the grandmother died beforehand. And so she knew all these stories that no one had told her, that some of them had actually forgotten. And so she talked about this niece who was clearly talking about experiences that their grandmother had. So some of these accounts, although rare, especially as you grow older, I mean, children do sometimes express this, but adults don't believe them, and then they grow out of it anyway. And at some point, they no longer remember anything. And of course, also, I don't know, I've talked to parents when they have like a newborn baby, and as they spend some time and get to know their baby, again and again, this sentiment of this is like an old soul, the sense there's this ready personality there, like an old soul, in the sense that there's already something there. Of course, because of having this body they're in, this brain at this point, it needs time for it to develop. But oftentimes our children or the children of other people, I mean, they are so different from their parents, despite nurture and nature, I mean, DNA and the way they're raised, and still they have very different likes and dislikes, and nothing in this life accounts for it. We all know ourselves that we have certain tendencies and certain ways of doing things, and our parents may be really surprised that we do this, that we have these likes and dislikes, and we may point at DNA, but DNA doesn't explain it. In many cases, it's there's a propensity, but it doesn't really explain it. So there are a lot of supporting reasonings. There are a lot of reasonings that point towards the possibility we lived before. Now, if we at least consider this, then, if we have lived before, if our mind has existed in a different way, in a different body before, we've had any relationship with anyone. I mean, there's not been anyone who's not been extremely close to us. Of course, by the same reasoning, there's no one who's not been our worst enemy. But for the purpose of this meditation here, we're not going to consider that, because what's the point of bringing up hatred and dislike and so forth? But the fact that anyone has been so close to us at some point. Now, if you have no trouble with reincarnation, you may think, I can just leave this point. I believe it anyway, so why should I go through it? But if you do the meditation, it's quite different. To really develop a sense, like anyone you meet on the street, anyone you hear of on the news, any living being, even an insect, however tiny and small they are, whoever they are, whatever they are, they've been at some point extremely close to me, and I just don't remember it. So that sense, if you really go through the meditation, and you don't have to do it with all sentient beings. I mean, if you go on, you would have to go on endlessly. But for quite a few people, if you do this with different animals, whatever, then we get into the habit that when we meet another person whom maybe we didn't reflect on in our meditation, but when we meet someone, there's a sense, oh, there was at some point I knew that person really well. They were really close to me. And now we've both forgotten. We've both moved on. We're not the same people any longer. But the point is that this feeling of distance and I don't know this person and I don't care about this person, that kind of falls away in the sense that, yeah, well, we've forgotten, but at some point, this person was to me the most important person in the world. And they did a lot for me. They helped me a lot. They sacrificed my life. They sacrificed their happiness for me. I mean, if they were a parent, like a really good mother, for instance, a really good father, a really good sibling, whatever, maybe a good friend we can think of, like this person. Maybe someone who saved your life once, like a really good friend, maybe someone, I don't know, in the army or whatever. So think that this similar kind of person, or this similar experience that we've had with everyone. And so that gets rid of the sense of distance and the sense of like, oh, I care about certain people, but the rest, no, they're not my friends, they're not my family. I mean, even, and this is for those who have children, even more effective. Everyone has been your child. You love them the way you love your own children now. To just go through it. I mean, to just, yeah, in the setting of meditation, and that generates a closeness right away. It's extremely beneficial for our own mind, really. And then, of course, having done so, especially if it's someone, I mean, considering the fact that they've all been so close to us and close to us in the sense that they've at some point in time been so kind to us, then to go through the other steps of not, well, it's not really remembering that kindness, although it does say that. Well, in Tibetan, the word can be translated as remember the fact that they've been kind to you. Become aware of the fact. So not really remember as in like recalling their kindness, but more like be aware. Don't forget that if they've been so close to you and they've been your mother, they've been extremely kind to you. So it's more that sense. It's not like that you literally remember what they've done for you. So become aware of the kindness they've given you and the wish to give it back. That even though we don't remember, but the wish for us to give back that kindness. And what is better than here than generating the mind of enlightenment? Here, these two practices are actually combined. But up to this point here, so wishing to reciprocate that kindness, wishing to repay that kindness, those are meditative steps we should also go through. And from there, we can then continue with equalizing self and others, the points we went through before. Why? Because those two should be combined. They all serve their purpose. They're all really effective for our mind for different reasons. Like we've gone through equalizing exchanges for others. Of course, right here, right now, everyone equally deserves to be happy, and my happiness is dependent on others. So that's one way of understanding, or one way of preparing our mind to generating a great compassion and so forth. But also that we don't get stuck so much in what is here and right now, believing in the solidity of our relationships, which comes along with the sense that they're permanent. Believing that this relationship we have right now, well, they're like carved in stone and they're always going to be like that. No, we just don't remember. This lifetime is extremely short in comparison to what was before and what is to come. So in the future. So therefore, to prepare for the future by way of going back and becoming aware of what, of all the different relationships we have with others. And like I said, it opens us to the possibility of feeling closer towards others and not connect to them on a superficial level. Superficial, what I'm saying in the sense of their character right now, their habits right now, their attitudes right now. It may be very different to what I believe is acceptable. And that also doesn't mean we need to accept these views, if they're wrong views, if they're harmful attitudes. We don't need to take them on, but connect to them on a different level, on a deeper level, on the fact that they have, as I mentioned every time during the meditation in the beginning, they have the same potential as we do, that they in actuality have a mind that is clear and knowing, and that is such that the afflictions are not part of their mind. They're there, they're adventitious, they're temporary, and they can be removed. So to connect to people on that level, it is so much better for us on a psychological level. Because what is the opposite of that? Well, going a little bit beyond indifference, it's resentment. And resentment, I think we know from our own experience, and if we don't know yet, well, watch your mind when there is resentment, when there is hatred. Our mind cannot be peaceful, but moreover, it's painful. And on top of it, it gives rise to suspicion, gives rise to fear, especially at this day and age where fear is a huge issue, and a feeling of loneliness because due to this resentment, we separate ourselves from others. We create a distance towards others, which is a driving force towards loneliness. So in other words, resentment harms us and no one else. Or, well, it can harm others if we act out of this resentment. But we need to understand our resentment is like taking poison. It's like eating poison, as I said, and expecting the other person to be harmed and to die, whatever. Right? Okay. So therefore, for our mind to be healthy and strong, free from fear, and without this feeling of loneliness and unhappiness, love and compassion are really important. So these are different ways of developing them. So try it out and see what happens. Okay, great. But let's go back to the text. Let's go back to what we've discussed last time. Just to remind you, we've gone through first the preliminaries of this practice. Of course, we can't jump into it, and the preliminaries are not that difficult. Remembering our precious human existence, which of course is another beautiful practice to generate joy. And it doesn't mean if it's a preliminary that we cannot, as part of doing this practice, we cannot bring this into our practice at all times, especially when we feel miserable, when we feel depressed or low, to remember despite, and of course we live in samsara, it's not surprising that there are problems and difficulties, but also what's so good in our life, all the opportunities we have, despite the problems around us, still we have a lot more freedoms, we have a lot more opportunities than many other beings. To remember them, to remember it could all be over at some point, to remember the nature of our existence being in the nature of suffering, to remind us again and again. And then also remember, if we like to follow the fundamental vehicle universal vehicles practices, so the practices of that are designed towards, or that are directed towards attaining enlightenment, while bodhicitta is so important. Focus on the two: conventional awakening mind, ultimate awakening mind. So especially with the conventional awakening mind, focusing on love and compassion towards ourselves, of course, to be mindful of when there is self-hatred, when there are self-deprecating thoughts, to become aware of them. Of course, also very important to catch them in the act and replace them with an acceptance of ourselves, with remembering our positive qualities of definitely the virtue we've accumulated to be now in such a positive state, being having this precious human existence. We must have accumulated a lot of virtue, we must have had a lot of positive and constructive thoughts. So therefore, to focus on that positive aspect when we feel low, etc. Okay. Anyway, so in that way, generating love and compassion for ourselves, but of course also for others. We just went through the different steps, and it's difficult, and we may have a harder time some days, and then, well, we try again the next day, and we just don't give up. If that's the way to find lasting happiness, and we all want lasting happiness, of course we don't give up. We continue, and despite the difficulty, well, have a good night's sleep and try it again the next day. And the good thing, of course, it gets easier. There's no way it's not going to get easier. But of course, what we need to understand that generating bodhicitta, generating conventional bodhicitta, and also remembering the fact that phenomena don't exist the way they appear, to remember that they're at least like illusions, or like dreams, like optical illusions, for instance. Well, on top of that, there are going to be problems. I mean, there will be problems. As part of our Dharma practice, it's actually seen as positive. Like I mentioned that on many occasions, that some of the greatest practitioners, if they didn't kind of seek out situations that were adverse, that were difficult, that were challenging, well, their lamas definitely did it for them. But even without doing so, I mean, well, life is just difficult, and there are a lot of negativities, and we can transform all these negative conditions and make them part of our practice. That is the beauty. We don't need to avoid them, which is not an instinctive reaction we have to problems. And I'm not saying be like some kind of, I don't know, masochist and expose yourself to all these problems. Of course, let's try and find a solution to a problem. But even if we can't find a solution, if there's no solution, we have to just wait until the problem is over. And since it's impermanent, it will be sooner or later. But then to utilize it for our Dharma practice, to remember that again and again, and apply whatever we encounter to our meditation. So based on what's called the fourfold practice. I mentioned it last time. Take it as an opportunity to purify negativities. I mean, last time I mentioned accumulating merit first, but let's start with this. I mean, just experiencing that negativity will automatically get rid of the karma that caused this problem. So in that way, we can rejoice in it. If we can't avoid it, okay, let's deal with it right now. Let's work with it right now and understand. In that way, at least the karma is gone. The karma to experience that particular problem. So there's something to rejoice in. And to use it as, of course, further purify negativities, and we've definitely accumulated them. We've accumulated negativities in the past. There's no doubt about that. And so to apply what I call the four powers, remorse and so forth, and in that way do purification, but also to accumulate merit. And there's so many great opportunities. So to get the capital, if you like, for spiritual practice. It's like if we accumulate this positive potential, then our practice will be smoother. We have less obstacles. Things are just easier in life. It's like, I don't know, if you run a business and you have some capital, it's easier. You have more opportunities. It's similar. So therefore, purifying negativities and accumulating merit. Those are the first practices, the first two. And the third practice, of course, to deal with difficult people in particular, to not avoid them, but to generate special love and compassion towards these beings, to seek them out, possibly to whichever extent we can do, or most importantly, to mentally to not avoid them, to consider them, and also generate positive states of mind towards them. In some texts, it's mentioned that you may even make offerings to them, but offerings here doesn't mean you have to go out to them, buy them dinner or something. No, I mean, you can visualize offering whatever they need in the form of, well, like donglen, kind of offering in that way. Maybe make actual offerings to them. Of course, maybe give them something if you know them personally. Give them something that doesn't harm them, that they don't use in a negative way. But definitely generate love and compassion towards them. And the fourth practice is also to ask for the assistance of other beings, like what I call Dharma protectors. Like if we want to really practice the Dharma and we're having a hard time with it, we're facing a lot of obstacles, well, to ask for help, to ask these beings who can, well, we can communicate with them actually mentally. We may not be able to hear their response, but they are definitely aware of our struggles, and we need to go out of our way and ask them for their assistance. So to ask for the assistance of the great practitioners of the past, the Dakas and Dakinis, these kind of skywalkers, as they're sometimes called. Like they're beings who are oftentimes highly advanced on the path, and who's made it their mission to help other practitioners. So in that way, to focus on these and ask for assistance. So in that way, if we apply this, then adverse conditions can be effectively taken into the path. So however ordinary the situation we may find ourselves in, however difficult it may be, we can make it meaningful. We can use any situation and make it meaningful. But for that, of course, we probably need to slow down a little bit, not to pack in too many activities throughout the day, and deal with things in such a way that they don't overwhelm us. And of course, be patient with yourself. Very important. But also understand that negativities can be beneficial. Okay, so that's point number 3. But everything that is to follow, of course, hopefully explains us more effectively how we can do this. So let's see. The next point is what we should do within a lifetime and at the time of death. So these points, well, towards point number 5, 6, and 7, they're most extensive. They really fill in all the blanks. How exactly do we do it in this situation, in that situation? But as we've heard before, there is some kind of preparatory practice. There's the essence, which is the 2 types bodhicittas, and there is, of course, the fact that there's going to be trouble. So there are adverse conditions. Now, what should we focus on just from the point of view of one life? So it's like a summary of everything before and everything that is to come, which is, it reads here, in brief, the essence of instruction is this. So when we say the essence of instruction, so the essence of the instructions of mind training, there are 5 powers, as they're called. There are 5 particular powers, the 5 powers of mind training. Okay, so what is the first one? The first of these 5 powers. Now, it's a little difficult to translate this word, but it's a term that is used quite a lot in Tibetan. It's slightly difficult to find an equal term. In Tibetan, it's pembe samba. Samba kind of means attitude, can mean intention as well. Pemba kind of means to propel the mind, to throw the mind. It's the same syllable as in propelling karma, but here we're not talking about propelling karma. Now it's just the same syllable. So this is something, this has got to do with Buddhist psychology, something we can all do. It's the power of our mind. Is that we can propel our mind. We can very forcefully, with this propelling intention, if you like, propel our mind to do certain things that if we didn't propel our mind in that way, we couldn't do it. So to give you a simple example, this is how the word is also used in Tibetan. If you have a hard time getting up, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning, right? You're used to sleeping until 8 or 9, whichever. So to get up at 4, I mean, your alarm clock goes off and you go, no way. right? Okay. But if you generate this propelling intention, so before you go to bed, you're like, no matter what, at 4 o'clock, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get up, no matter how tired I feel, there's no way I'm going to get up, I'm going to be fresh, I'm going to do. So if you set your mind in that way, you're setting your mind to do something that I can actually do. It's just these other factors that are in the way, and so sleepiness, etc., some of these factors. But because of the force of your mind, the strength of your mind in that moment, you need to really take a moment. So if you have a flight the next day and you don't want to miss it, I mean, you've paid all this money, you're definitely motivated to get up at 4, no matter how tired you feel, right? So in that same way, so in taking that example, you have a flight at 4, you need to get up, and so you get up at 4, you may even be awake by 3:30 because you're scared of falling sleeping in. So those are examples where you use the power of the mind. You can do it. There are some obstructions, but you can do it even right now. So you set your motivation. You set your mind. It's like this propelling intention. I don't know how else. In Tibetan, I'm so used to using it, but I wouldn't know how to use it in Tibetan. You propel your mind. It's like you with your mind right now, with your intention right now, you set your mind in a certain direction that it does what you want it to do. So this is part of our Dharma practice. We should generate that kind of propelling intention. To generate that conscious thought, it's enough. Self-centeredness, I've got enough. It's made my life's miserable until now. It's taken away all my freedom. It's enough. I mean, I've tried it out. Since beginning this time, I tried it out. I tried self-cherishing. I tried self-centeredness. I've been totally controlled by it. Enough is enough. I need to make a conscious effort. So this kind of propelling to really set your mind, it's enough now. Enough is enough. Let's try something else. Let's try a different direction. I'm going to make a greater effort in every situation. Whenever I meet someone, I'm going to watch my mind. I'm going to watch that self-cherishing. You see what I'm saying? So this conscious thought, it's just the power of our mind that when now, let's say in this example, like if I know I meet a certain person and my self-centeredness is going to set in, my resentment towards the person is going to be there, I set my mind, next time I meet this person, I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to allow my hatred, my resentment take over and say things that I may later on regret, etc. And if you do that in such a way, the more you do it, the more you be aware in that moment. There's almost like there's a spy in your mind that's holding you back, or at least keeping you aware, helping you to hold yourself back and not to do something you may regret. So this is this kind of propelling intention that we need throughout our life. So important. If we want to practice the Dharma, it's not about, oh yeah, tomorrow or next week. No, I'll start right away. I'll do it right now with this propelling intention. Okay, so that really gives us this force. It impels us, it propels us, it projects our mind towards Dharma practice. That is the first power. Then we need the power of familiarity to make everything. So first we need this push in the right direction. And I'm not saying we should only push ourselves one time. We need to do it again and again. Reflect, can I do better? Yes, I can. Okay, implying intention. I can do better. I'll do better next time. I'll try harder. And then familiarity, the power of acquaintance, the power of familiarity. To repeat it again and again. This is true for anything. The fact that we know math, we know one language or maybe more than one language, it's only because of the power of familiarity. The fact we can walk, we can talk, it's because we became familiar with these abilities. So here, the power of familiarity is the power of being familiar with mind training, with Lojong. This is part of mind training. Let's work on that familiarity. We've done it our whole life. Everything we learned, we did through familiarity. Our mind is used to it. Our brain is used to it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's become more familiar. So next point, work on that. Propelling intention. Next one, second one, familiarity. And then, of course, virtue. Throughout our life, let's not miss a single opportunity. Let's not miss a single opportunity. Is there an opportunity to create virtue? So this is called the power of the positive seed. It's like a seed. It's like capital. You haven't used the capital in the bank yet, but it's like a seed. It has the potential to start this business and that business, etc. So here, similarly, let's not waste a single opportunity to accumulate positive potential, because it holds so much potential. I mean, it has the potential to continue with our practice, to not waste this life, because who knows what's going to come next. Maybe we don't have the same opportunities. We have to create the causes now for the future. This life is short. I mean, we'll think of the future towards like when we're elderly and we're so, you know, we need to have a pension, so we pay into the pension fund. We're really realistic about this. That's great. But let's also think beyond that. Are we creating the causes to have similar opportunities again and continue with our practice? Well, if we haven't so far, we have to start right now, right today, which is the power number 3 of the positive seed. So to strengthen our positive actions, but also to strengthen our mind of enlightenment, of course. Of course, we are possibly far away from generating the mind of enlightenment, but we have to be hambatsawa in Tibetan, like not greedy, but like, even though it's like a mind of a highly advanced person, never mind. I'm going to practice this now. It doesn't matter. Even though it's totally fake, I'm going to do it. Never mind. So I do have to be bold in that sense. So like bold, like never mind. I'm going to do this. So the seed of the positive, the power of the positive seed. And then the next power, there are different translations for that, but the translation I prefer, because it's usually in the context of the 4 powers, it's the power of remorse. So healthy remorse. To also be aware I've made mistakes, but I'm not talking about guilt. This whole thing with guilt in the West, it's just an exaggeration. It's totally exaggerated. And there's the sense of permanence as well. Like mistakes I've made in the past. Those mistakes were made by a former continuum of me. I'm not the person who makes the mistake right now. I mean, usually we feel guilty about what we did with our parents or our children or whatever action in the past. Let it go. Remorse is okay. Okay, that was a mistake. If I could change it now, if I could go back in time, I would do it differently. That kind of attitude. And that's good enough. Not like, oh, I'm so bad. I'm so terrible. I did this. Oh, I'm so bad. I mean, that is totally exaggerated. It's totally based on a sense of permanence. That I'm the same person right now who made the mistake in the past. I'm kind of carrying on that load just created by the mind. The action is done. It's long gone. Let it go. It's gone. But remorse or regret is just saying, no, that wasn't okay. If I could do it differently, I'd do it. That's it. Let it go. But this recognition that this was a mistake, that's important. But don't allow yourself to fall into this guilt trap. It's so typical for the West. Tibetans, like I mentioned this before, they don't really have a proper word for it. I mean, they say there is one, but no one uses it, and I'm not even sure that's the right word. I don't think they have the same issue. And definitely when you're a practitioner, like Dharma practitioners, I think at some point they definitely know that this is guilt is totally it's not helpful at all. It's just an exaggerated, comes out of a lot of wrong views. Definitely the view of a permanent, independent self. Me, the bad person who did something bad, although it's ages ago. Even if it was yesterday, I'm not yesterday's person. Yesterday's I and I right now, they're not identical. Because if they were, I didn't change. I'd be the same as yesterday, which would mean I haven't changed. Impossible. Just think impermanence. No way. So let go of guilt and generate the power of just regret. And then the power, the fifth power is the power of aspirational prayers. Now, of aspirations. I mean, aspirational prayers. When we hear prayers, we think prayers like according to Christianity, Judaism, Islam. No, forget it. Prayers are not, it's very different. It's just this like internal dialogue. Or may I be able to? May I be able? This aspiration. Previously, with the first power, and I go through them one more time, but with the first power, it was this propelling intention. I can do it right now. I'm just maybe lazy, or there are other factors that are in the way. Now here with the aspiration, it's things I can't do right now. And the causes and conditions haven't come together yet. So, but I can aspire towards it. So aspire in the sense of, well, I can direct the prayer towards other beings. Please help me. Come on, be there. Just as I can ask an actual person, like a doctor or a nurse, to help me in my effort to get better, for instance, if I'm physically sick. So here I'm directing my prayers, my requests at other beings, which is similar to what we discussed earlier, kind of asking the assistance of Dharma practitioners. So I'm not saying that these overlap a little bit. The 4 practices that I mentioned earlier, they overlap a little bit with the 5 powers. So to have these aspirations towards these beings, please help me, but also towards myself. Come on, you can do it. Come on. Right now, no bodhicitta. Okay. Right now, no great compassion. No, let's be realistic. But I can do it. May I be able to do it? May I be able to do it? Someone just switched on their microphone. Is this because you have a question? No. Okay. All right. Okay. So these are the 5 powers. Apply yourself to the 5 powers. Okay. The first one is propelling intention. This kind of knowing there's certain, I can do this right now. I can start now. So let's put my mind in that direction. Throw it in that direction. Propel it in that direction. That force of setting the mind to then be able to break through laziness and whatever else prevents me from effectively practicing, especially when it comes to self-centeredness. Second is the power of familiarity. Let's work on making it like becoming familiar with it, acquainting myself to this practice of working with our self-centeredness. Number 3, let's not waste any opportunity to accumulate virtue, to engage in virtuous actions, in positive actions, to strengthen this positive potential in the form, of course, the mind of enlightenment, just Donglen and all these incredible practices, so many opportunities in every situation in our life, especially when there's trouble. Oh, what great opportunities. Where we're daydreaming. Oh, let's make it a point. Set your mind with the propelling intention, the first power, to use as many possibilities, as many moments throughout the day to practice. So we familiarize ourselves. When you stand in the queue, for instance, at the cashier, right? If you've set your mind, you remember, oh, okay, now's an opportunity to practice. I can do this now. And once you've done it a few times, familiarity sets in. Okay, so through familiarity, through the first 2 powers, therefore, the propelling intention and familiarity, you can now do it. You're going to do it. You're not going to waste that time. But also to be aware that there were actions in the past that may become an obstacle now, right? Just as positive actions open the doors to Dharma practice, assist us in our effort, well, negative actions, because they're in total opposition. Negative actions are in total opposition to positive actions, and therefore they can create an obstacle to our practice. We need to purify them. They have to purify. We need to work with them. So regret is the first step. Remorse is the first step. And from there, yeah, well, remorse is already extremely powerful. And from there, we can then take it towards purifying practices. And lastly, we need help. We need help. We need our own mind to set our own mind. Come on, mind, you consciousness. Come on. Really, you can do harder. Let's make these aspirational prayers. May I be able to generate bodhicitta, real bodhicitta, and not 5 seconds of like, oh, how nice if I were enlightened, and that's it. No, may I be able. So you set your own mind, but you may also direct it at helping forces and ask them for their assistance. And in that way, asking for help, well, there's definitely going to come some assistance. And there are many stories in the past of not just the great practitioners who we have a hard time identifying with. One person who comes to mind is Jetsuma Densimpamo. And she wanted to go into retreat before her long 12-year retreat. She lived in this area, I think Lahul, I think it's called. So in that area, there are a lot of dakinis, dakas and dakinis, these special beings who assist beings in their practice. And so she made these aspirational prayers. Please help me to find a good retreat place. Please help me. Please assist me in that. And she, as she writes in her biography, she did find it. She did find her cave. And it turned out to be the perfect place for her practice. So therefore, that's the 5th power. And these 5, they're amazing. They're beautiful. We can all do them. We can all do them. Our mind has the capacity to practice them. And if we spend our life in that way, we make our life very meaningful. And of course, generate the causes towards enlightenment. So what would be more effective? And the good thing is, as we practice them, it's not like, oh, we're miserable and miserable and miserable and miserable and miserable, and then one day we're enlightened, right? No, the good thing is these practices slowly remove some of these negative experiences we have, whatever we have, like whether it's depression or unhappiness or, I don't know, feeling upset or lonely, fearful, they weaken. And then we may not be aware of them right away, but at some point we look back and feel like, oh, things really have changed in the last 2-3 months, years. Yeah, it takes time, but time is going to pass, and then before you know, 2 years have passed. And if we applied the 5 powers, no way, we're not going to be happier and more peaceful and more satisfied without depending so much on external things. Right? What's going on around us? It's an internal development of our own mind, and that makes us more independent of others. So what's going on around us? Well, it's not as important as it is right now. We're less dependent on that because our well-being comes from within. Okay. But those 5, I've just gone through the first 2 lines, are also important when we die. So, what is this? Transference method. That is just an awkward way in English to say hoa. Hoa is a very popular practice of basically at the time of death. Usually it's done with a lama, a qualified lama, who helps us in the process of our consciousness leaving the body, and then helping us in such a way that we're reborn in a conducive rebirth. We're reborn in a conducive existence. So there are these rituals that can be done. It's like a special meditation, like I said, done by a great spiritual master. But most of the practitioners would say, no, the best paw is really, well, doing these 5 powers, practicing the Dharma, practicing bodhicitta. That's the best preparation for death and the preparation at the time of death for our next life. Now here in particular, it mentions the 5 powers in a slightly different sequence than before, because here are not the powers we should practice throughout our entire life. Those we should practice anyway, but no, we should practice at the time of our death. Now, okay, it's not like we're dying right now. We don't know. Maybe we are. Who knows what's going to come earlier, next day or our next life. But if we're aware of them, when we practice the first 5, we're more ready to practice these 5 I'm going to go through now. at the time of death. Now, if we have a long kind of death, I mean, it sounds painful to say, oh my God, like I know I'm dying. Oh, that's just so awful. Like if I know I'm dying, it feels really difficult on hearing this. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to kind of die slowly. I'd rather, fall asleep and not wake up again. But the problem is we're not prepared. I mean, we don't expect to fall asleep and not wake up. We have plans for the next day. We definitely don't prepare for death. But if now we know, for some reason, I've just been told I've got 2 months left. Actually, that's amazing. 2 months I can get ready. I can get my things in order. But most importantly, I can prepare my mind for my own death. So I think it's actually fortunate to have that time and not just, fall asleep and not wake up again, because we're definitely not prepared. I'm not talking about making a will or, cleaning your room or something. I'm talking about getting this mind in order. Okay. So what are the 5 at death? Not that difficult. The first one is the power of the positive seed. When we know we're going to die, we should offer our possessions to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to our Lama. Now, that doesn't mean we can't give something to our children and no, I mean, to be sure that they're taken care of. I mean, that's the way usually things are done. I mean, helping them, but at least mentally, definitely mentally, I'm giving everything away. So especially when we're not dead yet, I'm giving all this to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Let me utilize it until I die. So even if your official will may be to your children, but in your mind, you offer it to the great beings, you offer it to the Dharma. And if you can actually offer at least parts of it, I mean, if you don't have family, then you can just offer it to the great beings to continue their meaningful work. You can do that anyway. But at least a part. And if you can't do that, at least mentally. Right? I mean, we can actually do this right now already. If we feel like I've got too much stuff and it's a burden, offer it to, if you can give some away, that's great. It's less of a burden. But if not, offer it to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha and say, this is actually theirs, and really believe it, not just make believe, but really believe it. And I'm using it for my Dharma practice. And maybe that also helps to get rid of some of the attachment towards the clutter, towards the things we really don't need. Anyway, so the first one is definitely at the time of death to offer your possessions to objects of virtue, such as the lamas, really realized lamas, etc., Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. The next is the next power is the power of the propelling intention. So to be sure that attachment is not going to be the driving force, to set your mind in such a way, attachment, to let go, to not be attached, but rather to let go, Okay, it's time to let go of this body, of my possessions, of my friends, my family. Let go, just let go, right? To be able to have a peaceful death. So it's the propelling force of, and the commentaries explain this differently, but here I'm following Teacher Rinpoche's explanation, and it's straightforward. And of course, more could be said, definitely, but I think we can keep it simple. We don't need to make it complicated. So here, the force of the propelling intention, which is to propel our mind to be determined. I'm not going to allow attachment to rule my death. Of course, there's going to be some attachment. Okay, let's be aware of that. But it's through the force of this that we can make a difference. Through the force, through the power of this power, the second power, in this case becomes the second power, which is the propelling intention. I will not allow this to be an obstacle. Anyway, time is up, I think. Yes. I've talked for an hour and 15 minutes. I can go through the remaining ones. Well, I will go through the remaining ones. I'd like to do a meditation on these 5 powers throughout our life. So let's see whether we can make them part of our life. There's one question, maybe we've got a minute. There's a question. If I feel the answer takes too long, then I'll do it. I'll answer it next time. Yeah, Brigitte, please unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
from Switzerland.
Oh,
I
yes.
have a question about these 5 powers. In the Guru Puja,
Yes. Okay.
verse 97, it says, through the practice of the 5 forces, the quintessence of the entire Dharma. Does it mean these 5 forces or these 5 powers?
Well, there are other 5 powers or 5 forces as well. The 5 powers you need to generate, become a Buddha. So the 5 powers, the 5 forces, they're slightly different. I don't think there are these 5 explained here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they're the same. I would have to read the commentary, but I'd be surprised because this is very unique here to the practice of Lojong and this particular Lojong practice here, or particular mind training
thank you.
practice. Yes, you're welcome. Okay, that's it. Any more? No?
Can I ask something?
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, thank you so much.
Sure.
And I thought a lot lately about this particular thing with the death, because a lot of people around, they suffered from really, really dramatic death. If someone, sorry for making this bad atmosphere, but if someone been raped, or was shot in a very dramatic way. So how can we help? How
Can we
I
help?
know we can't help them really directly, but if there is any kind of preference for such things, such situation.
Okay, so
Because our mind now is very full of this kind of fear that something will happen to our
right.
relatives or us. Very dramatic.
So you're saying, how can we prepare ourselves towards such a situation? Or are you
Yes,
saying, how
and
can we help those people who have already died in such a terrible way?
Or also to bring awareness, to a very simple awareness to other people, what to do if death is coming so fast and so dramatically. What can you do in the seconds you have? You don't have 2 months, you have just seconds.
Yes,
Something really dramatic happened, and now how I transform it immediately.
Wow, I've thought about this a lot, to tell you the truth, especially 7th of October. You know, like if I was there and these people come up to me and I know I'm going to get raped and murdered, what am I going to do? Right? I thought about this a lot, and I don't know. I mean, so easily said. It's so easily said and so difficult to be done. But to not generate hatred, to not generate, I mean, it's so easily said, right? Fear is going to be there. There's going to be fear, etc. But I would try my very best, and this is the ideal case, to generate compassion. Okay, they're going to take my life. May them taking my life bring them great happiness. Now, okay, I'm saying this is easily said, but if you can think in that moment, I give them my body. I know it's going to happen. I know I'm going to die now. I've got, this person. And if I could control it, I would want to think, now take my life and may you find the happiness of enlightenment and well-being. I think in that moment, just because of that thought, I give up. Not give up means let go. I let go in that moment, and there's peace because of that moment. I mean, if I can change the situation, of course, I'm going to grab the gun. Okay. But let's say I can't. All right. I can't. And not grabbing the gun to shoot back, but at least to whatever. I don't even know what to do with the gun. But the point is, so the point would be, if I can't change it in this moment, I wished I have the presence of mind to let go and have that positive thought towards the person. I think in that moment, that's the best preparation. But that's the ideal.
Geshe, about that, may I ask something? Why to generate love and compassion to the person or some person who do it, and not for the other people around me that suffer like me?
Oh yeah, that as well, of course, that as well. But Definitely, but in that moment, your encounter is you only see this person. It's not like, okay, there's this person with a gun coming towards me. What is everyone else doing?
No, but even if I don't know what other, even if I'm alone in my house and someone is coming inside and do what is done, so I can think I'm talking about myself. It's so hard to think about this person, something right now, especially when he done what he done, good thoughts. It's easier for me, for example, to think, okay, I try everything, I try to fight, I try everything. Now this is the situation. So then I can, for a little bit, think about other people that will not suffer like me or something like that.
Of course.
To generate compassion for someone that in the same time do it to me. I don't know how it's
no, don't do it. I mean, don't do it if in the end it doesn't. I'm saying that would be, well, I mean, what we hear the stories of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, when someone is about to take their life, they generate compassion towards that person. But we don't have to do it. No one is expecting us to be a highly advanced bodhisattva, right? You do what you can in that moment. So to generate love and compassion towards the people around, or remember your Lama, right? If you have a Lama, if you have, like, for instance, this homeless, the Dalai Lama, if just thinking of him, and that is what is usually advised, think of, like the Tibetans, when they die, they ask someone to show them a picture of His Holiness. Many Tibetans, if they have that strong connection with His Holiness. So to think of someone who inspires you. So a sense of gratitude, maybe devotion towards that person, and of course also all the other people, like may my suffering now help them to not die or something. Totally. I mean, whatever works. Does that make sense? Whatever works in that situation. But to try as best as we can to keep a peaceful mind. And for that, we need to prepare. That's why we meditate on death all the time, right? And if you are in a situation where death is very much part of your day-to-day life, the advantage is you have a better death awareness. It's easy to forget death when it's never around you, and then we're not prepared. That's the problem. We should remember death every day and prepare for it. Right? So in that way, go through the notion. I may be, think you killed by an accident in a car accident. I mean, anything could happen anytime. You don't have to live in Israel to be killed, anytime. So for that danger to be there.
I'm sorry, just the time is harsh.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, but do you want to add something? Just last short.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very personal, actually. It happened to me. I got raped. I was in India, and I met somebody before, and he told me, if you can run away, you run away. If you're not able to run away, just give your body. And it happened, I didn't run away. So I tried myself to really let go. And it really happened that afterwards I found he couldn't rape me because I wasn't in the body. And it was very, I almost never tell, but I think in this occasion, it was really quite an experience. Even though afterwards he came back, but it helps. It helped a lot.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Afterwards, I met a Lama. I met Ling Rinpoche. He told me, oh, you didn't pass life. So I could order, I wasn't a Buddhist at that time. So I could somehow get it into a framework. But just, I like to share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was very important. Yeah, very important. Thank you. Okay, anyway, those are important questions. So let's continue next time, but also let's do a meditation. Is there some other event following afterwards? Dalit, do I have to stop? Do we have 10 minutes?
Yeah, at 8 o'clock.
Okay. We need to
Okay, I'll do it quickly.
Before 8. 10 minutes before 8.
Okay, sure. I won't take too much time. Okay, let's start with some breathing meditation. Just focus on the breath, nothing else. And then let's give some thought to the 5 powers, starting with propelling intention. Can we actually set our mind to work even harder? To work harder on reducing our self-centeredness. And the resulting other afflictions such as resentment, greed, and so forth. So let's generate this mind together. In the form of a determination to not miss a single opportunity. To be more mindful of our self-cherishing. And then apply the antidotes in the form of more love and compassion for others. And then there's the power of familiarity. To grow more familiar. That is to habituate, to acquaint ourselves even more to the practices of lojong or mind training. In such a way that even at times when we wait at a cashier, the supermarket, when we're in a traffic jam, or sit on the toilet, to apply lojong or mind training. Practice love and compassion, maybe in the form of tonglen, And for that, we need positive seeds. Or positive potential. In the form of virtuous actions. To find more opportunities to develop such positive actions. By way of, for instance, combining any neutral actions with a mind of enlightenment. I'm eating for the benefit of all sentient beings. Brushing my teeth. To have healthy teeth. And in that way, be able to spend more time and focusing on the Dharma. And so forth. In other words, to connect all neutral actions with conventional bodhicitta. And then there's the power of remorse. A mind that it doesn't feel guilty. But in a very rational way, regrets any harmful actions driven by self-centeredness that we accumulated in the past. And lastly, there's the power of aspirational prayer, directed at our own mind, to set it in the direction of enlightenment through these aspirations. But also addressed at all the great beings. Mentally asking for their support, their help. And in that way, opening ourselves to that support and that help. So having reflected on all 5, can you see a possibility to integrate them, make them part of your everyday life? And now, conclusion. Let's focus on whatever conclusion you've come to. Spend a few moments just focusing on that and allow for it to become a greater part of your mind. So that you're able to apply these 5 powers to your daily life. And then to fully utilize the positive potential we've accumulated today, let's dedicate it towards, of course, our own enlightenment by thinking, may this become a cause for us to one day become fully enlightened, and in that way be of the greatest benefit to ourselves, more importantly, to all sentient beings. And in the meantime, may our positive potential also become a cause for the great lamas like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the other realized masters to have a long and healthy life, so that they can continue to guide us through their example and through their teachings. And finally, may this positive potential have a positive impact on all the beings around us. May it become a cause for the war to be over soon, the war in the Middle East, in Israel. And may it become a cause for everyone involved to reduce their resentment and instead replace it with understanding and care for each other. So with this in mind, let's recite the prayers. Through these merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings, without exception, into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chinrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, thank you very much. I hope it wasn't too long. What time is it? 9 minutes. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Next time I'll make it a little shorter. So be safe and healthy, and I see you again next week.
No, not
Not
next week. We will announce because you said to do it.
Yes. Well, next week, probably Wednesday is good, or Tuesday.
Okay, so we will speak and then we'll decide.
Yes, please let me know what time works best for you. Okay.
Thank you, Kishima. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, DFI. Thank you, Dolly.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bridget, for sharing.
Yeah, Bridget, thank you so much.